I feel my heart will overflow. Hello, I just got to let you know, 'cause I wonder where you are, and I wonder what you do. Are you somewhere feeling lonely, or is someone loving you? Tell me I'll be in your heart forever. I've got a clue, but let me start by saying I love you.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you're tuning in from. I see we have Ebenezer from Tanzania, and we have my good friend Simon Frank. Simon, we missed you at the mentorship class last week. I hope you're joining us tomorrow. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Grace Nzula. I'm an HR consultant and trainer with Atara Solutions. I'm very, very excited to be here this evening and to just unpack this legal requirement as we figure out the next steps. I am a trainer from Atara Solutions. Now, Atara Solutions is a HR consulting and training firm. We also offer human resource manager outsourced, and we also offer recruitment and selection services. So I also host this Get It Right with Atara Solutions. We also organize learning events. So if you're launching a product for learning, let us know and we'll be able to support you with those. Besides that, they also call me the moderator of choice. And with me is Richard, who is my co-host. Richard, you can introduce yourself.
Good evening, Grace. How are you doing? I hope you had a wonderful day. My name is Richard J. Magoma, a HR professional. Of course, I also do other things besides HR. I train public speaking. I also train people in interview preparation. And most importantly, I'm always very delighted to be here on Tuesdays to get it right, to get tips, to get nuggets. Like today, the frequent question in HR profession platforms, this NSSF thing, how should we go about it? We have a specialist to demystify. Grace, I had to use that word, to demystify, make it clear. Over to you, Grace.
Yes. Here at Get It Right with Atara Solutions, we demystify issues in employment and entrepreneurship. We do this every Tuesday from 8 p.m. to about 9:15 p.m. And Richard, last Tuesday, unfortunately, our intro disappeared. So the recording is actually starts from in between a conversation. But today, at least technology is working. And we had an amazing conversation last week about love. That one was very much a lot. And we were supposed to, anyway, those things you never know. With us as well is Madam Catherine Sidandi. Catherine Sidandi is a sign language interpreter. Catherine Sidandi helps us become inclusive. Catherine Sidandi is also a social worker and she's currently looking for a job. So if you know any opportunities that require her services, kindly please get in touch with us so that she can also get something going. She's an amazing human being. I think we've done this for the last 3 years now, which has been amazing. And we've made quite an awesome friends in the family or community with those with hearing impairment. So Catherine, we appreciate you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here and joining us every Tuesday. I know it's not easy. I know you also get tired. So I am personally very happy and praying that God opens door for you as well. So tonight, allow me to just give a shout out to our partners before we can get to this the conversation today. Now, right. So we have this session that's coming up on when is this happening? On Thursday this week. This is protection of wages, navigating legal landmines. We are going to be discussing how much discretion do you have when it comes to your employee salaries. Can you actually demote someone? And when you demote them, does it mean that you also deduct the salary that you used to promote them? Again, if you're supposed to deduct people's salaries, to what extent? What does the law say? Is it covered in law? Is it covered in any statute? So this is the conversation we are going to be having on Thursday this week from 2 p.m. to 5 o'clock. And of course, you guys know Advocate Kenyanjui. He's been with us for a while. You've had his conversations here on Get It Right with Atara Solutions, and quite a number. We call his sessions legal intrigues. And that is what we will be discussing on Thursday. And at only 2,800, and you get to actually ask all your questions and get to learn from an expert on how to navigate your salaries and wages, and to what extent you can do what. So please join us on Thursday for this conversation. And then we have our partners. We have Nile Front Cottages. Nile Front Cottages is a hotel, or rather, their cottage is located in Jinja, Uganda. Now, it's about 2 hours from Busia border and about an hour and a half drive from Kampala. It is so beautiful. It is right near where Lake Victoria meets River Nile. So you can imagine the fish there if you're a seafood person. It is so beautiful. There's a place you can stay here, and you get both the sunset and the sunrise. It's so beautiful. You need to visit. Our friends who are in Uganda, if you have not visited Nile Front Cottages, I don't know what you're doing. And for the Kenyans, please plan a road trip and get to Nile Front Cottages as well. We have Profiles International. Profiles International, we call them the people. If you are looking forward to becoming a Genos emotional intelligence coach, then Profiles International will be able to support you. If you're looking for people who provide psychometric assessments for your interviews to make sure you're getting the right people, then Profiles International will be able to do that. They also do personality tests, which they call the DISC model. So you can also take advantage of that and get to know how to play on each other's strengths. We have K-Square HR Services. K-Square HR Services is our partner in Rwanda. So if you're from Rwanda or you're looking for support in Rwanda, Kigali, then let us know and we'll be able to link you up with K-Square HR Services. They are consultants in Rwanda. They also offer trainings around Kigali as well. We have Steadfast Quality Solutions. Steadfast Quality Solutions is our partner in Uganda, and this is headed by my good friend Herbert Zake. Now, Herbert Zake has been an executive coach for about 10 years now. He has coached over 500 people, executives that is. So if you're looking for a coach, then Herbert Zake is your person. He's actually a Gallup's Strengths certified coach. And his organization offers training. So if you're looking for board evaluation, board trainings, among other board services for your board of directors, then Steadfast Quality Solutions would be able to do that for you. We have AAR Insurance. If you're looking for an insurance partner for your medical, for your car insurance, then AAR is a caring brand. And then we have Hotel Sapphire. If you're in Mombasa on a Friday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, there's always something happening at Hotel Sapphire in Mombasa town. If you're down there, please go for the band on Friday, go for the games on Sunday, go for the wonderful lineup of activities they have every day of the week. And then if you're looking for hotel transfer, that one that we call Class A, Hotel Sapphire do that actually. Then we have Tufaha Resort. Tufaha Resort is where we are having our road trip on 12th of April. So I hope you've marked the date. On 12th of April, we are going to Tufaha Resort. Tufaha Resort is actually in Nanyuki, and we will have an amazing time here. I can tell you that for a fact. We will enjoy the trip. Going down to Nanyuki, we have learning that afternoon, and then we have dinner, and then of course, if you want to stay the night, you can. If you don't, you can always leave. And then you have Panessa Training Institute for all your woodworking classes. If you're looking to learn how to work with wood, then Panessa Training Institute will be able to do that. You have Port Saco. If you're looking for a circle to join, then Port Saco would be your person. And then Sotet Kinyumbani. If you're looking for a place to have lunch or dinner in Nanyuki, you actually need to visit Sotet Kinyumbani. They have very, very fresh food, which they get from their garden, which you can be sure is actually organic. Their food is actually always fresh. I don't get enough of Sotet Kinyumbani, I tell you. So for those in Nanyuki, you're passing by there, please visit Sotet Kinyumbani. It's just before, on the turn as you go to Mount Kenya Safari Club or something. Yeah, that's done. Right, so our partners, we appreciate you. Thank you very much for making this happen. Now, to the reason you're here today. I need a cup of water. Richard, where is your Get It Right cup? Oh, you're also getting it right?
Yes, with my hibiscus tea.
Hey, Lanes, you know, they say when you want to not have a lot of guests in your house, you serve herbal tea. You look rich, but they don't know it's milk you can't afford. Anyway, tonight we want to understand, what does the act want with us technically? So, Mercy, we have a lineup of professionals, both from HR, from what do we call them? Accountants, business owners. All of us are here to understand what are the expectations of NSSF Act 2013. Allow me to introduce our speaker this evening. Her name is Mercy Kimunge. I keep calling her Kamunge because I know her Kamunge, but her name is Mercy Kimunge. She is an experienced employee benefits consultant with over 10 years in the financial services industry. She specializes in retirement planning and personal and corporate insurance. She enjoys building strong, healthy client relationships, enhancing client retention, and ensuring compliance. She's skilled in stakeholder management, client relationship management, operations, data analytics, pension funds administration, project management, public speaking, and Microsoft proficient. When she's not working, she enjoys indulging in books, hiking. Hey, you're a hiker. Are you single? You know, they were saying the other day, there was a meme that was saying that only single people who are taking hikes. Anyway, I'm just joking. And exploring outdoors, going to cinemas with family, grabbing a meal, etc. She's also a Rotarian at the Rotary Club of Westlands and very passionate about giving back to communities. Currently, she's the strategic relationship manager at Zamara. Did I get that right? No. Okay. So, Mercy, tell us, what does the act? You can tell us more of whatever I may have left behind. But what does the NSSF Act 2013 expect from us?
All right. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Catherine, and all the members who've joined. I see the number is growing. We started at 110. Now we are closer to 200. I look forward to all the 200 of us working with me as I do this presentation, asking the questions as they may come. And I hope that we can have the questions pretty much towards the end. But if there's anything that is burning, you know, that thing that is burning that you believe you can't wait until the end, then we can have that hand risen up, and Grace is going to help me on that front. So I'll not repeat my name and my intro, but you'll see the slides are from Zamara because that is where I actually work. I am a manager there, looking after the umbrella fund, which is the largest in the Eastern Central region of this continent of ours. And we look forward to continue growing the space that we are in. So NSSF Act of 2013 that was implemented in 2023, that we are now in the third year of implementation. What is it? We have implemented, we have done a couple of things, right? What have we done and what have we not done right? The first year, it was simple, it was easy. Yeah, kidogo money, 1080, not a big problem, right? We go to the next year, the money increased. Still not a big problem. It's around 2,000 shillings, not a big problem. Now we are clocking 4,000, and next year we'll clock higher figures. So I believe that's why we are having quite a bit of questions around this implementation. But we'll start at the beginning. What is this act? And what is NSSF? basically, NSSF is the National Social Security Fund that all of us who are working Kenyans, who are either citizens, residents working within the borders of Kenya, have to contribute into. Before 2013, the old fund basically required us to contribute 5% of salary, which had a capping at 200 shillings. So we all knew 200 shillings as the amount, but it was basically a percentage. But because that percentage was set up in the 80s, 5% of salary sounded very big. And so, of course, the capping of 200 shillings was put in. But of course, over time, with the changes in the economy, in our currency, the 200 shillings, of course, did not look like it's going to be tenable. That once we get to the age of retirement, the amount of money we are accumulating from the 200 shillings is really not sufficient. So, of course, having done a couple of researches in the market, and seeing what our other peers in the continent are doing. If you look at Uganda, you look at Rwanda, you look at Tanzania, the contributions they're actually making into their national social security funds were higher, right? So that informed the move into having the new national pension scheme being at 6% and then capping it at ranges that are not a fixed amount. And we will get into that as we progress. So what is the benefit of actually having this national scheme? It's basically to ensure that each of us who are actively giving our youthful days, our strong days, our happy days to our employers, that we are actually putting some money aside. That once we get to the age of retirement, we will not rely so much on maybe our children or on the society or even the government to take care of us. We will be having some reasonable amount that we have put aside for retirement. In the older fund, where we were contributing 200 shillings as the employee and 200 shillings as the employer, once we go to the age of retirement, that amount of money would be paid to us as a cash lump sum. So in this new Act of 2013, the amount of money that we will have accumulated at the point of retirement will then be converted into what we call a monthly payout. So it's not going to be a lump sum per se. It's going to be converted into a monthly payout, and then it will be paid back to us as a salary. Again, as workers, we are used to receiving a salary. So of course, we have a momentum. We have a way of knowing that we can plan our money on a month-on-month basis. I know some of us are pretty good with money and would want the lump sum, but we have seen studies that have shown that as much as we have people who are good with money, the majority of us will get a lump sum, and within 6 months, that money has disappeared because we have not been able to manage the amount of figures that you'll have accumulated by the end. The other thing, this act envisions that the NSSF will have improved governance, it will have improved oversight, it will have improved operational structures. We've seen NSSF coming out and speaking about access over the portal, ease of access to their specific stations, wherever your companies could be, the stations that you have, the relationship managers who have been assigned into your particular companies to just sort you out on these things. So this is some of the things that were envisioned by the Act. Of course, the other thing is to ensure that even the informal workers, those people who are self-employed, those who are doing their juakali businesses, that they can also contribute towards this fund and put money aside, that at the point of collecting it or ceasing to actively work, that they can collect some money. So these amounts, of course, as we contribute them, are tax-free because they are within the limit that has been set in terms of the tax deductible amount, which in December increased from 20,000 per month to 30,000 per month. So because the amounts we are contributing are below the 30,000 mark, they're definitely tax-free at the point of contribution. So what are the key changes that we can be able to demystify and see clearly? The first one is on the contribution rates. The old fund had a 5% contribution capped at 200. The new act is at 6%. And then this 6% is split into two levels, a tier 1 and a tier 2. The tier 1 is capped to the minimum wage, and the tier 2 is capped to the national average earnings. So what are these two figures? These two figures are figures that are published every year by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Once they have done their studies, their research into the market, and they've been able to see what are members earning. We usually see this report. It usually comes out round about Labor Day. Around about Labor Day, we are able to, that's when we hear the conversation from government telling us that if there are minimum wages that need to be increased in the rural areas, in the urban centers, different centers have different minimum wages. And then we also have the national average earnings, where they look at all the people who are working in the country. And if you are to compute that against the workers in the country, what's the national average earning? So that is where the figures come from. Now, these two funds were mandatory. Yeah, so as long as you are a worker within the boundaries of Kenya, you must contribute. It's not voluntary. You can't choose to contribute or not. And of course, there are penalties that are levied to an employer should they choose not to remit on behalf of their employees. I have talked about the payment at the end. For the old fund, it's a provident fund, meaning that all your monies that you contributed up to January of 2023, all those funds, the 200 shillings, were in the provident fund, which effectively got closed in January of 2023, so that we open up the new pension fund where we are contributing 6% of salary, and that is a pension fund. And a pension fund basically means that at the end of contribution period, once you get to the age of retirement, that the monies will then be paid back to you on a monthly basis. Okay, so those are the key changes that have come in with regard to the two separate acts. I had already touched on the contributions, the tier 1 and the tier 2. What I'd like us to get from this slide is that on these levels of tier 1 and tier 2, the act allows that an employer who has already set up a pension fund or who would want to set up a separate pension fund can send their tier 2 contributions to that pension fund, right? But for you to send the monies to the tier 2, your tier 2 monies to a registered pension fund, there are steps. You have to apply for the contracting out to the Regulatory Retirement Benefits Authority, who are in liaison with NSSF. They will review the documentation, they will review the fund you're participating in, and once they are satisfied with the documentation that you've provided, they will give you what we call a contracting out certificate. Once you've received that certificate, it gives you the effective date when you can send your tier 2 towards your registered pension fund and only send tier 1 to NSSF. So if you haven't contracted out, at the moment, you're definitely sending your tier 1 and your tier 2 to NSSF. If you have already contracted out and received your contracting out certificate to send your tier 2 to a registered fund, then you are making two payments. One payment for tier 1 to NSSF, the other payment to your pension fund. This act has allowed for transition. Transition meaning that at the end of 5 years, we will get to a point where the contributions are now more streamlined for anyone joining the market, for any new company setting up, for all the old companies that have been in the market up until that point. But before then, every year, NSSF publishes the rates at which employers are going to utilize the contributions for NSSF, split between tier 1 and tier 2. But initially, when the act was coming out, they had already provided a tentative table that would have been used in the year 2013 moving forward. But we also noted that coming into 2023, the figures really did not change, and hence why they look pretty similar to what would have happened had the act been implemented effective 2013. So year 1, we all noted that you were having the lower limit at 6,000 shillings. The upper limit was 50% of the national average earnings. The national average earnings that are used are what would have been in 2012. So the base rate of 2012 in terms of the national average earning was 36,000 shillings. Hence, 50% of that 36,000 shillings being 18,000. That's why in the first year, we had a lower limit of 6,000 and an upper limit of 18,000 because it was 50% of the 36. Now, when we came to year 2, the lower earnings limit increased by a margin of 1,000 shillings from 6,000 shillings to 7,000 shillings. And the upper earnings limit was basically 1 times the national average earnings. Again, we noted that NSSF maintained the base national average earnings of 2012, which was 36,000 shillings. So that hasn't changed. So in the first 2 years, 36,000 shillings has been utilized as the national average earnings. However, that figure was the base figure in 2012. If we look at the national average earnings that are currently in play, that we would be talking about around 45,000 shillings, right? So you can see there's a difference of around 9,000 that has grown over that period of time. So when you're coming into the third year, which is now February 2025, as we await NSSF to publish the rates that we are going to be utilizing. At the moment, we are speculating that we would still use what they had tabulated, which means that the lower earnings limit is going to be an increase of 1,000 shillings to 8,000. And then the upper earnings limit is going to be 2 times the national average earnings. Again, here we are estimating that the national average earnings that will be utilized is the base figure of 2012, which is 36,000 shillings, giving us 36 times 2, 72,000. I'm sure we've seen so many people saying the contributions are going to double. So hence the doubling. The doubling is coming from the fact that the upper earnings limit is going to be 2 times the national average earning. And if this 2 times is going to be equal to the 36,000 that has been used in the past 2 years, then we expect that that figure is going to be 72,000. Grace, I hope we are all okay until this point. I hope there are no hands that have been raised or questions that have been asked in the chat box until this particular point.
Yes, we are okay. Questions are still coming. And let me just say this, please put your questions in the Q&A so that we can be able to follow. It becomes easier because there is Fred who is saying, what happens to expatriates when their tenure expires? Yeah.
All right. I will answer that. We will pack that to the benefits at the end. So at this point, we are still in the contribution phase. At the end, as I get to the end of the presentation, we will talk about how you access your benefits. And that, of course, will answer that question with regard to expatriates.
All right.
All right. So again, as we've said, we have a transitionary period. We are in year 3. We have 2 more years to go. So as the table shows, we have year 4 that, again, estimated to grow by 1,000 shillings to 9,000 on the lower earnings limit. And then the upper earnings limit will be 3 times 36,000 if at all the 36,000 doesn't change. And then from year 5 going on, the NSSF is going to define what the lower limit would be, but the national the upper limit will be 4 times the national average earnings. So we expect these figures to continue increasing year on year until the 5th year. With regard to contracting out, we all know that NSSF is a statutory deduction, and these deductions, of course, are, and employers are mandated to ensure that they are actually done. So in the event an employer wants to, an entity wants to contract out, again, it is a decision that the employer needs to make. So as we get to the end of the presentation, I will have listed what the documentations are required for contracting out. Should any of you who have companies here or who have questions with regard to contracting out, we can be able now to see what is required. So once you provide those documentations, those ones are applications are uploaded to the RBA portal. RBA does their review, they do their checks, they do their assessments, and then they come back to you either with an approval and a contracting out certificate or a rejection and a reason as to why they have rejected the application and where you need to correct or update. So far, of course, we have seen multiple companies that have been able to contract out since the beginning of NSSF increments in 2023. Okay, and so should you need any of assistance in that process, we can be able to walk you through that journey. Now from here, Grace, I want us to pull out calculators. If we have our math books, let's pull them out. I know mwalimu hahesabu alikasirisha watu wengi. Na I hope HRC, part of the people walikasirishwa na mwalimu wa hesabu. Yeah. So we will go into illustrations. So these illustrations I have broken down into 3. And what I have done with these illustrations is, number 1, use an amount of salary that is lower than the upper earnings limit. And then the other one, I have used a salary that is above the upper earnings limit, just so that we are able to see the difference. Okay. So we will start with the 40,000 shillings per month. If we are earning 40,000 shillings per month, we have the lower earnings limit, which basically says that it's 7,000 shillings in this particular, in the last year. So 2024, we had 7,000 shillings by the employee, 7,000 shillings by the employer. Remember, these contributions are done by both employee and employer. So any amount we do is a multiplication of 2, just so that the 2 add up, okay? In 2024, the upper earnings limit was 36,000 for both the employee and the employer. And for someone who was earning a salary of 40,000 shillings, for you to compute, you'd have to check the gross salary versus the upper earnings limit, and you take whichever is lower. So in this situation, between 40,000 shillings and 36,000 shillings, which one is lower is, of course, the 36,000 shillings. So that becomes your pensionable earning. So this pensionable earning is what is used to compute the NSSF amount that is payable. So 6% of 36,000 shillings gives us the 2160. Okay, so this 2160 is the total amount that is contributed. But this total amount that is contributed needs to be split between tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 computation is 6% of the lower earnings limit. In this case, it was 7,000. So 6% of 7,000 was giving us 420 shillings. For ease of mathematics, you'd then do 2160 minus 420 to give you the 1740. However, those of us who like to do a lot of long mathematics, the tier 2 computation is the same as 6% of the 36 minus 7,000. So 36,000 minus 7,000 gives you around 29,000. Multiply that by 6, it will give you the 1740. So when you add 1740 plus 420, again, still brings you back to 2160. So for this particular employee, whose salary is 40,000 shillings, their contributions in 2024 was 2160 of salary, split into tier 1 and tier 2 as seen. Now, as we go into 2025, we know times are tough. Escalations of salary need to happen, but for purposes of this computation, we have not increased salary. Okay, so they are still earning 40,000 shillings. Remember, for us to do the computation, we have to compare the gross salary and the upper earnings limit. So in 2025, the upper earnings limit has gone to 72,000, but my person is still earning 40,000. So you have to take the figure that is lower of the two. The lower of 40,000 and 72,000 is 40,000. And that becomes the figure that you utilize to do your NSSF computations. So again, you'll take 6% of the 40,000 to give you the 2,400. And then this 2,400 is then now split into tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 is standard. The 40,000 is more than the 8,000. So of course, 6% of the total 8,000 gives us 480. Tier 2 is going to be the difference, which is basically 2,400 minus 480 to give you 1920. Alternatively, to confirm the figures, you do 40,000 minus 8,000 to give you 32,000. Then you multiply that by 6%. It should give you the 1920. Okay, so this is for an employer whose contributions are not subject to any pension deductions. So this is your full salary. The only amount of money you're saving towards your retirement is purely just NSSF contributions. So in 2024, you are contributing 2160. In 2025, then for the same 40,000, your contributions are going to go up to 2,400. Okay. So using the same example, I would want us to look at a company where I am still earning 40,000, but we also contribute for pension separately. So that means in my payroll, I am having two deductions. I am having a deduction of my pension and I'm having a deduction towards NSSF. Again, I will still use 40,000 shillings as my salary. The upper earnings limit and the lower earnings limit are not changing. 7,000 in 2024, 8,000 in 2025, 36,000 in 2024, 72,000 in 2025. Gross salary still 40,000. My pensionable earning 36,000 in 2024, 40,000 in 2025. I hope we are clear on how we arrive at the pensionable earnings. Okay. Now from there, 6% of 36, 6% of 40 still gives me 2160, still gives me 2,400, but I have pensionable service, meaning I'm still contributing towards a pension fund separate from NSSF. And my employer has it at 5% of gross salary. Again, 5% of gross salary. My gross salary is 40,000. So 5% of that gives me the 2,000 shillings. So in that 1 month, on my payslip of 40,000, I have contributed towards my retirement at NSSF 2,160, towards my pension fund 2,000. So in total, in the year 2024, I have saved 4,160, and in the year 2025, potentially I'll be saving 4,400 on a monthly basis. So Grace, I don't know whether people are going to raise up their hands, and so that I can see whether there are people who are in this situation where there's a contribution towards NSSF and a contribution towards a pension fund separately. And of course, this, of course, gives double contribution. It works for the member because eventually in retirement, you will have more money, but there's a strain that comes to each of us. And sometimes it's just good to know whether there's a situation. Some companies want to keep it that way. Others are wondering, how do I go about it? So I don't know whether there are hands that have been raised, Grace, because I can't see now that I'm just projecting. Maybe you can help me know whether there are hands that have been raised.
There are 2 hands that have been raised.
Aha.
Yeah.
Right. All right.
4 now, 5. Yeah, the number is going up.
Okay. So there are
Yeah.
people who are in this situation. So there's then the third alternative. Remember I said I'll do 3 alternatives per amount so that we are able to see the difference, okay? So now, in the third amount, it's to say, as an employer, I have employees who are contributing towards an NSSF, which is statutory. I also have a pension fund, which I promised all these members that we are going to participate in as a benefit of being my employee. Okay, so how do we work together to, one, either maintain our 2 contributions as they are because we don't have a problem with that, or 2, optimize the contribution so that I still have my statutory deduction, and over and above that, I still have my pension. So as we jump into year 3, you will now start seeing the differences. For this particular company, we want this person to do what we call integration. Integration basically means that I only want to make one deduction that caters for everything. Okay? I want to do one deduction that caters for both pension and NSSF statutory deduction. Now, most of the companies from the studies that we have done as Zamara, the contributions by most private entities are at 5% of gross salary. However, NSSF is at 6% of salary pegged on the limits. And that is being displayed in this table very well, because you can see that where I have highlighted in yellow and red at the bottom, this pensionable contribution of 5% of gross salary is 2,000 shillings, right? So this 2,000 shillings, in as much as the entity may want to integrate, it will not meet the limits that has been set on the statutory deduction. Because if 5% of my 40,000 is 2,000, yet my statutory deduction required is 2160, then companies would have to rethink the 5%. So that if your 5% then grows into a 6%, then this figure then grows. And with the growth of this figure, you're able to accommodate both NSSF and pension. Okay, so I really wanted that to come out in this slide, because as we go to the next slide where my person is earning more than these limits, you're then able to see how integration comes in and how integration plays into ensuring that the strain on both the employee and the employer has been minimized. So what options do employers have in this situation? One, it's either to maintain the NSSF, or two, to increase the limit on pension so that then it accommodates both NSSF statutory deduction as well as having surplus amounts going into a pension fund. Okay, so the person earning 40,000 and contributing 5% does not work for their salary at the moment in terms of integration, unless this 5% is increased to anything from 6% and above, so that the limit on NSSF statutory deduction is met. Now let's use someone who has 90,000 shillings as salary. Okay, we talked about the limits, the lower limit, 7,000 in 2024, 8,000 in 2025, 36,000 in 2024 as the upper limit, 72,000 in 2025 as the upper limit. But now our salary has gone up to 90. Remember, for us to get the pensionable earning, it has to be the lower of either the gross salary or the upper limit. So in this case, we picked the 36. In the year 2025, between 90 and 72, 72 is lower. So we are going to pick 72 here because that's the limit of deduction that year. So anyone who's earning 72,000 shillings and above will have their upper limit capped at 72,000 shillings. Anyone who's earning 71,999 and below will have their limit based on salary, because their salary is lower than the upper earnings limit. When it comes to the contributions, again, 6% of 36, 6% of 72 currently gives you 43.20. Split it between tier 1 and tier 2, 6% of the 8,000, then the balance of that goes to tier 2. So this is what we meant by doubling. Any person who is above the upper earnings limit, their contributions will definitely double. For the person who was at 40,000, you noted that the increase was roughly around 300 shillings. But you see, for anyone who's earning 72,000 and above, the amount will be a perfect multiple of 2. For the same person whose company has a pension fund still at 5%. We can see that their contributions are 2160 last year, 4320 this year, but they also have an extra amount that they are contributing towards their pension fund. And this is what they were used to contributing plus the 200, right? So the amount of money that is being contributed on a monthly basis has then now grown from this 6,660 to 8,820 because it's an addition of 4320, which is statutory deduction, plus your standard pension contribution of 45. Okay. So we can be able to see for a company that has, those of us who had lifted our hands and have the statutory deduction still being deducted, as well as the pension fund also being deducted. You can see that your amounts are going to increase that are going towards your retirement. Now, if this company decides to integrate, how does that look? Integration in this case is possible. Why? The 5%, because the salary is higher, it accommodates the statutory deduction. So 5% of the 90,000, because remember, pension is on gross salary, mostly. Gross salary, basic salary, most private companies, gross and basic is equal to the same thing because there are no allowances, right? So on 5% of the 90,000, 4,500. In the year 2024, since the statutory deduction was 2160, if the company had done what we call integration, the member would have only been deducted 44,500 on their salary per month. Then in that 4,500, 2160 goes to NSSF. Then the balance of that, 2340, goes to the pension fund. Okay, so you'll note that as the amount on NSSF statutory deduction increase, then the amounts going towards your pension fund will decrease once you do what we call the integration. And especially if the integration is anywhere lower than 6 and up to 6. But if your contribution on pension is above 6, so you're having a 6.5, a 7, an 8, a 10, whatever amount it is, if you're having a figure that is 6% and above, at least you will have a surplus that will ordinarily continue going towards your pension fund, even as your NSSF statutory deductions continue to increase. So in the year 2025, this company that has an employee with 90,000 shillings, and they have a pension fund of 5%, and they have integrated, this member will be deducted on payroll 4,500. 4320 of that will go to NSSF, and then the 180 shillings balance is going to go towards their pension fund. So when you look at the implementation of NSSF, those are the various options that are available in this market from what we have seen from the various structures that employers have. For those employers without any other pension fund, then it's purely statutory reduction of NSSF, the 6% split into tier 1 and tier 2. Then we have those companies that had already given the benefit of pension to their employees and told them that as much as you are we are having the statutory NSSF then of 200, we'll still have a surplus benefit towards your retirement at X% of salary. Now with the new changes in NSSF, members are finding themselves making the two deductions. Now, to avoid people having a big strain on their pay slips, then the concept of integration has also come in. How about having one deduction that caters for both my retirement fund and my statutory deduction? And that amount is a constant figure that will, be deducted from my salary. But at the end of the day, in the back end on the payroll side, it will be split between statutory deduction and the surplus of that going into my pension fund, right? So those are the illustrations I needed to provide before then we go into what are the benefits of saving with NSSF? How do you access your money? When do you access your money? And things like those. So Grace, maybe I can pause here on the illustrations if there are any questions on the illustrations that I can clarify them.
I see we have a number of pensioners. I don't know whether they're from Zamara or where. They have been answering quite a number of questions here.
Oh.
Yeah, probably your
Oh
team
yeah,
is
my
here.
colleagues, I asked my colleagues to join.
Yes,
All
they're
right.
helping out to that end.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I have seen quite a number of questions have been answered.
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody who's saying, is integration opting out?
No, integration is not opting out. Integration is basically purely on contributions on payroll mathematics. It's purely on payroll mathematics. Contracting out basically means that once you have decided or agreed upon the method of computation. So for example, let's say you are on the original one, this one, no pension. Once you're on this pension and you decide to contract out, contracting out basically means that you have gotten the approval by RBA to send your tier 2 to a registered pension scheme. Now, what that would do is that this tier 2, these amounts of tier 2, which essentially are the bigger figures when you talk about the NSSF deductions, these amounts you can send them to a registered pension fund. So what you'll be sending to NSSF is the limit up to the lower limit. So you can see last year, for those who'd contracted out, they would be sending 420 per month. For this year going forward, once the public notice has been issued, we should be sending 480. If you have contracted out, this 3840 should be received by your registered pension fund. So that's what contracting out is.
Okay.
Mm.
And I'm telling you, nowadays we're learning, we're becoming pensioners.
Yes.
Kindly put your questions on the Q&A. There's a question by Florence. What happens if now that one has moved. What do we need to do to ensure integration? Do we have to communicate to RBA the same way as opting out, or it's an employer choice?
So this one is an internal choice for the integration. Of course, it has to come all the way from the board because benefits are discussed at the board level, I believe. So that ratification is done, that moving forward, we want to integrate at this rate, and this is how it will look like on member pay slips going forward. Of course, you would need to have a conversation with your employees for them to understand the changes that are happening. The other thing is that you'd need to look at your contracting documentation. So if you've given me a contract that says I am on permanent and pensionable basis and statutory deductions are mandatory, and now you want to integrate, means there's like a benefit that I'm losing. So those discussions need to be done internally. Similarly to contracting out, it's the same thing. Everyone knows your money is going to NSSF. Should you want to contract out, it's also important for your employees to know that tier 1 is going to NSSF, tier 2 is going to go to this particular pension fund that has been approved, that we have received our contracting out certificate for, and this will be effective X and Y dates. Yeah, so both of those must begin at the board level in terms of approval and implementation in the specific companies.
All right.
Yeah.
And is the integration allowed in the Act?
Integration is not really in the Act. Integration is basically just you looking at your costs as a company. Okay. What the Act states is that your statutory deduction is 6%. Whatever you want to do with anything else after that is up to you. Remember, the extra pension benefit is a royalty program that you're giving to your employees to entice them to stay with you. Yeah, because at the end of it, they will get some income. Remember, this is money that your employer cannot give you free of charge. So if your employer has given you a benefit of pension of extra 5%, that extra 5% can never be an addition on your salary. It has to go towards your pension. So integration is basically the employer trying to say that, hey, look, these two things are one and the same. Yeah. And because I don't want to lose either or, I would prefer that we go in this direction. And these are the benefits that integration has to you as an employee. Yeah.
And then Florence is asking, what happens if an employer scheme is a
Mhm.
provident fund and not a pension fund? Do you still opt out?
Yes, you can still opt out, even if it's a provident fund. However, your provider needs to be very clear on the NSSF amounts that have been set aside. So what most funds that are provident are doing are just basically setting up a side scheme for just the pension to be run in a pension manner. Because remember, at the end of it, provident will give you a lump sum. Pension must convert into a monthly. But if the systems of that fund are, well set up and they know how to differentiate NSSF from the provident fund, then the two of them can run in the same scheme. Yeah. Only that at the point of payout, you then know that my provident fund is from this amount to this amount. That is a lump sum. NSSF amount is on this other column, and this can only be accessed as a conversion on monthly payouts.
Okay, probably that answers Priscilla's question. Upon retirement, how is the payout handled between old NSSF, which is provident, and new NSSF pension? Will both be paid out as pension, or will one get the lump sum provident and the new contribution annuity?
So for what we have seen so far, the old one will still be paid out to you as a provident fund. Yeah. And then the new one is what is going to be converted into monthly payout. However, we are still in very, very early days. And in pension, there's something called a trivial pension. So far, all of us who have contributed in the new act, all our amounts that have been saved, none of us has accumulated an amount above a trivial pension. Trivial pension is basically at this particular moment, if you have not saved up to an amount that is more than 1.2 million. Right? So if you started in 2023, 2024, and you're retiring in 2025, the amount that you've saved in the new NSSF Act is still below the 1.2 million, which is a trivial. So you'll still be paid that amount as a cash lump sum. However, for those of us who have a couple of years to go, we will definitely breach the trivial pension. And the trivial pension amount keeps increasing every year because it's based on the minimum wage. Yeah, it is 70% of the minimum wage, and the minimum wage keeps increasing over time. So as the minimum wage increases, the trivial pension also increases. So as long as your current NSSF Act of 2013 contributions have not gone above the trivial pension, you'll still be paid your amount as a cash lump sum. But over time, most of us who have 10, 15, 20 years to go, we will then start benefiting from the amounts being converted into a monthly payout.
All right.
Yeah.
And Stanley is saying, please clarify pensionable amount. Does that include allowances or just gross? What about fluctuating allowances?
Okay. So when we talk about pensionable earnings, the act is very clear. It is your gross salary. So gross salary means your basic plus allowances, but it excludes fluctuating allowances. Yeah, so it is those allowances that you consistently get on a monthly basis. So for example, if you have a housing allowance that is paid up to you every month, that's not a fluctuating allowance. That's a fixed allowance. If you have transport allowance that is paid out to you, if you have maybe telephone allowance that is paid out to you, allowances are different, right? But there are those ones that we receive on a monthly basis without fail. Those ones are added up to your basic salary to form your gross salary. So the act states that your pensionable earnings are on the gross. The good thing is that now you have the limit. So of course, if your gross is above the limit, such as what we have seen with the person for 90K, that the amount that will be used currently will be just the upper earnings limit.
All right.
Yeah.
And Richard, maybe you can help me reading what is on the chart as we answer Stanley's question. What about employees who are secondary, that is their primary employer is government and is seconded to you and you give them allowances? Do you apply NSSF tires deduction?
So for those now employees are basically employees on two employers' payrolls, but now the question there would be, which payroll are they on? Who runs the payroll? Yeah, is the payroll run by the government as much as they have been seconded to you, or are you the one who runs the payroll, right? We also have situations where maybe I'm a freelance employee, but in different companies, yeah? So I work maybe 2 weeks in this company and another 2 weeks in this company. What the Act basically states is that these two companies must come up with an agreement on how NSSF is going to be deducted. And this agreement is supposed to be filed with NSSF. Failure to that, should the NSSF enforcement team come on board and they realize that you are in two spaces, the two employers will need to pay the full amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that is in the Act. So the two companies need to come up into an agreement. So if it's gonna be proportionate, so that then both of them are paying because it's proportionate, that needs to be documented.
All right.
Yeah.
And someone is saying, are we supposed to wait for public notice before we effect the deductions in the payroll?
Now they made it a thing in the past 2 years to give us the public notice, and they have not communicated officially the rates to be used. All of this, as much as you can see, we're putting them here in red, are hypothetical because we need to know from them what are the limits we are using, right? So we are all pushing, even as we are asking them, what are the rates for this year? Yeah, so last year the rates were published just about payroll time in February. I know we're in payroll season. I haven't seen any notice yet, so we keep seeking clarity from them.
Okay. Please share
Yeah.
with me as soon as you get that. I can share with the team here.
Not a problem.
Yeah. Eric is saying, what are the benefits of contracting out compared to NSSF?
I would say that contracting out and having your tier 2 being run in a separate fund, of course, some of the things that you'd want to look out is your efficiency, your access to the monies, your access to direct communication that comes to you from your providers. That's one. The other thing is, of course, about the returns that are earned by the various providers that you work with, vis-a-vis what we have seen being provided by our regulator. Of course, at the end of the day, we know any government, when they style up, they'll do things the best, right? So we know that should they want to style up, they can style up and give us the best returns and the best systems and the most efficient service that we can receive from NSSF, and we have seen that they are trying and they are getting into that space. But we're also seeing so many employees who are of the concern that, no, I don't want to feel the security, I don't want my pension to be together, considering it's the larger portion of what I'm contributing. Again, it's provided for in the Act, so it's not like someone is trying to force an issue over something else. So those are some of the sentiments that we have felt or seen in the market, as especially for those clients who are fast movers in terms of the contracting out. Yeah.
All right, Richard.
Mercy, thank you for that very eloquent presentation. There is a question by Fred. It looks like he gets a lot of overtime. Is overtime part of sustainable earning?
Is it frequent? Is it monthly? Is it every time? If it's gonna be on your payslip every month, yes, it's part of the monies that should be added up into your gross salary. If it's a one-off, like a bonus, no. If it's a one-off, like a reward for something, not really. But if it's something that has to come in every other month, whether it's increasing in value, so this overtime, this month could be 1,000, next month 10,000, next month, the overtime line is appearing on payroll every single month, then that's not a fluctuating benefit.
Then there are other questions here. One of the questions is from Fidel. Fidel is curious about the court ruling that happened in February 2024. Then again, he's asking, can you repeat the trivial amount? Then there's a question by Brenda. Do we treat leave allowance in this computation? Thank you for the wonderful presentation.
Okay. let me start with the court ruling that was pretty, what do I say about the court ruling? We were told one thing, but NSSF came out guns blazing and said another thing. So the court ruling for last year, that had been in court since I think 2023, was basically just saying that the NSSF Act of 2013 should not be implemented, that it's invalid, that it should not be applied. And it went back and forth between the courts, from one court to another. And the employment court was given jurisdiction. And the ruling of the employment court was that NSSF as is for 2013 should not be applied. Okay. So meaning there are employers who fell down to 200. So stopped implementing the NSSF Act of 2013. Okay. However, NSSF came out and provided a public notice and said that all employers must contribute in line with the Act of 2013. And as we've all seen in the systems, their systems do not allow anyone to fall down to 200 because they are pegged into tier 1 and tier 2. So as it is, the implementation of it is in limbo, and both implementers are correct. Implying those who fell down to 200 are following the court ruling. Those who are maintaining the act are following what NSSF said. And here we are. The court is still out on this matter in terms of how do we go forward. So we still keep waiting. What I keep saying about these monies for NSSF is that it's not money lost. Whether you contribute the 200 or you contribute in line with the NSSF Act of 2013, that the monies that are being contributed are eventually monies that are going to be collected by your employees, right? So we're in abeyance when it comes to that.
Mariam Minor is asking, once you receive contracting out certificate from RB, do you need to write to NSSF to inform them that you've been issued with a contracting out certificate for them to give you permission to transfer NSSF tier 2 contributions to pension fund scheme?
Okay. So basically it's courtesy. It's courtesy to inform them that you have your contracting out certificate. As I said earlier, RBA is working with NSSF. So if you look at the email where your contracting out certificate comes through, in copy on that email is NSSF, right? But so sometimes maybe the email may go unnoticed. So on your end, what you're doing is courtesy to just drop them a letter to inform them that you have received the contracting out certificate, and that effective the date on the certificate, you'll be sending your tier 2 to your pension fund. Yeah, it's basically courtesy. Yeah. Okay. There was a question on trivial pension. Basically, as it is right now, even without NSSF, and you're just looking at your normal pension contributions, when members get to the age of retirement, there's something we call a trivial pension. A trivial pension is the amount at which a pension member at the point of retirement, their money will be given to them as a cash lump sum, as opposed to converting that into a monthly payout, because the conversion of that money into a monthly payout may result into a monthly amount that is not sufficient and may be eaten up in totality due to the transfer processes. So by the time it moves from the insurance company to your bank, from your bank to your mobile money, so all those charges will eat into your money. So currently that amount is 1.2 million. So anyone who has accumulated any amount up to 1.2 million and below, even if they are on a pension fund, at the point of exiting, they'll be given their entire 1.2 million in total, of course, subject to taxation, right? But then if the amount is more than the 1.2 million, then that amount is going to be converted into a monthly payout. Remember, for the pension fund, it doesn't convert the entire amount. It says that it's a third of that amount. So if you have accumulated, so for example, 2 million, a third of 2 million is around about, what, Richard? Your calculator, is it there? A third of 2 million.
Those people who do not have any love affair with mathematics, thank you.
Yeah, 1/3 times 2 million is 666,666, right? So that is what you'll be given as a cash lump sum at the point of retirement, subject to taxation. Then the balance of it, which is around 1.3 million, would then be converted into a monthly payout that you will then receive. So now, if your total accumulated amount was 1.2, clearly, if we are to do 1/3 and 2/3, that amount that is remaining as the 2/3 is not sufficient to maintain the monthly payout without it being eaten in by the transfer charges. That's where the trivial pension comes in.
Thank you.
All right,
There is a
Richard.
question.
Richard, you can read out the question by Neptune Kulecho. She said she's asked twice, and we can't see it. Neptune, we said, do you put your questions on Q&A? But let me ask, as Richard is getting ready with that, did you have another presentation, Mercy? Or this is it?
The last one is just, actually, let me just go through the benefits. There was someone who had asked the question earlier on. Yeah. So when it comes to collecting your benefits at NSSF, should you exit before the age of 50? Remember, there are two portions. Here, I even try to target the guys who have a pension component on their contributions, because currently, if you have a pension component, you can only access a cash benefit of 50% of your pension. Yeah, so if you have accumulated the amounts over and above the NSSF statutory deductions, the extra amount that goes to pension, you can only access 50% of it. However, any amount for NSSF, as long as you have not attained the age of retirement, you cannot access that money. So that money is preserved or deferred until the age of retirement. So these monies you can transfer from NSSF to a pension fund or from a pension fund to NSSF, yeah? So that transfer process is allowed, but you can't access. That means you can't remove the money from the pension fund into your pocket. The only option you have is to preserve it, defer it, basically leave it in the fund where it is, whether it's at NSSF or whether it's contracted out to your pension provider. Alternatively, you transfer it to another registered fund or transfer it back to NSSF. So before the age of retirement, so if you're exiting before your prescribed retirement age, this is the treatment of the monies with regard to NSSF. Should you then exit on other benefits that you'd have, there are other ways of exiting the pension fund. In the terms of retirement, we've talked about it. It converts into a monthly pension. 1/3 of that is given to you as a cash lump sum. 2/3 of that is converted into a monthly payout. In the event of death, the benefits are paid out to your beneficiaries. In the event of invalidity, you've had an accident, critical illness, you've got a disability, you need to provide proof to NSSF. This is just a screenshot from the act of what you need to provide for them to be able to pay you your benefits. Now, of course, death, invalidity, and immigration are not pegged on age. Retirement, of course, is pegged on the retirement age. Then immigration, there was a question, expatriate. If I'm an expatriate, my term of service has ended and I need to leave, can I access my money? Yes. This is the extract from the act. As long as you can prove that your working permit has been cancelled, your contract has ended, you're going back into your country of origin, then of course your benefits are going to be paid out. However, if your country of origin is the East African states, so that means you're Uganda, Tanzania, you can't access the benefit on the terms of immigration benefits. So immigration is for any person who is going into any other country outside of the East African states. Okay, so those are the benefits that you get from NSSF. I had said at the end, I will provide you with the documents a list of the documents that you need to do. So the employer needs to make a decision in terms of contracting out. Do you want to contract out or not? If yes, then these are the steps. You also need to make a decision. Do you want to integrate your pension and your NSSF, or do you want to leave your NSSF separately from your pension? This is specifically for companies that have the two benefits running at the particular moment. Then decision by the employer to integrate, again, I had mentioned earlier, if the contribution rate is less than the 6% of NSSF, there needs to be a decision to at least match that 6% because of the reduction that we have seen as we get into the future, and then do the integration. We will then help you do a sensitization session with all of your staff members, help them understand NSSF, the computation of it, the deduction of it, the benefit of it, how you access this, whether it's within your NSSF, whether it's within your private pension funds, that's done. Then now for the company to contract out this documentation that is required, we need a board resolution. We talked about it earlier. The board are the providers of the benefits that every employee in any company gets. Then the employer has to agree to go ahead and undertake the contracting out process, where tier 1 goes to NSSF and tier 2 goes to the pension fund. Then you have notice to all members. All members must be informed. That's why conducting a sensitization session is important, because after that session is done, you need to notify your members, either in person, either in a notice board, however each company does the notice, that notice needs to be done. Then there's a form that is provided by RBA that needs to be filled in and executed. Once those documents are done, we provide them to the regulator and we await the feedback from the regulator and the certificate from the regulator. So this entire process takes around, once you've received the documentation, the process with the RBA takes around 60 days as per the Act. That's 2 months to review and come back to you. Yeah. So it's not an easy process, but of course we are able to work with you through this journey. Right. So now I can leave this open as we answer any other questions that are there, Grace.
Thank you, Mercy. There's a question by Neptune. It is incomplete. Let me try and read it. I have lost the question because I dropped out, but basically, is the 30K tax-free a sum of NSSF tier 1 and 2 and contribution to pension scheme, whether privately or through employer? I don't know if you can be able to get that question because it's incomplete.
Yes. So basically, she's talking about the tax deductible on a monthly basis that I mentioned earlier, that has increased from the 20,000 per month that used to be there to 30,000. So yes, your pension contribution, any amount that's going towards your retirement benefit. So this is NSSF as well as private pension contribution. All of that, as long as it is below the 30,000 shillings, it is tax deductible, meaning that on payroll, it is not subject to tax.
Very good. There's a question, Fred. I think that should be my last one. If you contract out, what happens to tier 2 contributions previously remitted to NSSF?
Okay, so tier 2 previously remitted to NSSF. The Act states that NSSF should send that money back to your contracted out scheme, but we know that's going to be highly unlikely. So those funds will stay with NSSF, and you will have your start date towards your pension fund from the date you start sending your tier 2 monies.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Grace.
Thank you. I see it's 9:20. I am over here trying to manage time because we can never finish or exhaust this conversation. So I think for further conversations, you may need to get in touch with Mercy. Mercy, this is your email.
I've provided my colleague's email because it's going to be easier for him to,
to respond,
to catch up and respond. But we all work together. He's actually the one helping respond on the chat. It's called Abraham Kemei.
All right. Maybe you can also copy paste his email address on the chat. Akina, Ayu, Peggy, and everyone else, if you're able to get in touch with Kemei, he will be able to also give you answers. In the interest of time, we cannot exhaust these conversations. Normally, it takes about 3 hours breakfast meeting, and we still don't get it right, you know. there will always be questions because there's a lot that is at stake here. So in the interest of time and with your blessings, allow us to end the conversation here. I know it's almost 9:30, and probably we also need to have Mercy take her glass of water and just probably take a rest. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Mercy. Probably you can give us your parting shots.
All right. Thank you, Grace, and the team for this opportunity. I am happy that we've been able to have this conversation. It was proper, engaging, and I hope that we have learned, one of two things that we will implement as the rollout of year 3 comes into play. And of course, we remain at hand to continue assisting you should there be any challenges. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you for that, and thank you. I really appreciate. Mercy has put or rather, Abraham has put his contacts on the chat. Kindly get in touch and let them clarify. They're the experts. Let them clarify any further information that you may want. And if you're looking for support in contracting out, then I would highly recommend Zamara as well. So thank you very much, our audience, for being here. Let's do this again next Tuesday from 8 p.m. as always. We will have a different conversation. You know how we do it. If you're joining us for the first time and you'd want to keep this conversation going and to know what is happening on Get It Right with Atara Solutions, please join our WhatsApp group. And I think Jacinta is about to share those the link to the WhatsApp group. But follow us on Instagram at Atara Solutions. Facebook, we are also at Atara Solutions. And LinkedIn, we are also Atara Solutions Limited. YouTube, this recording will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, Get It Right with Atara Solutions. So we are in the business of changing the world through information. That is our mission. And I hope that this has been beneficial to you. To Richard, to Catherine, to the team at Atara, thank you very much, you guys, for making this happen. We cannot do this without you, our audience as well. Thank you very much. And the entire team at Zamara, we appreciate your input on this. And please don't forget to join us on Tuesday as we discuss wages, or rather on Thursday, gosh. Yeah, on Thursday this week, 20th, from 2 o'clock on Zoom, as we discuss how to protect wages for employees. So thank you very much, guys. It's lovely to have you here today. Please don't forget to join our WhatsApp group, like our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, follow us on LinkedIn, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thank you so much, you guys. Have a lovely, lovely night, and see you next Tuesday, same time and same place, as we discuss yet another topic that affects employers and employees. Asanteni sana and good night.
Good night. Thank you so much.